Kakadosh Boker Or. We are on Daf Kufchet Amud Aleph 10881. I'm just going on the Kuf Zayin Amud Bet, where basically the story was that Rabbi Ravuna, he had a forest on the Sfat Na'ar. And what happened was that there were people that they were telling him, listen, you have to cut your trees down because it's stopping the boats, right, on the sides. So what happened is that they went and he said, okay, first you cut, and after you cut, so then I'll cut. So he went and he said, yeah, but how does that work? The Shakish always says, meaning first you have to clean yourself, and then afterwards you clean everybody else. Meaning that first you have to purify yourself. You have to make yourself straight, and then afterwards you do that for everybody else. Yeah. So he comes and he says, yeah, Hatam over there, Abba de Parza Kruflahabe. He says it was belonging to the Moshel, and therefore it was the ruler. And therefore he went and he said, if he's going to cut it down, I'm going to cut it down. But if he's not going to cut it, why am I going to cut it down? Right? So he says, and so I'm not going to cut it down. So this is where we're up to on Kufchet Amud Aleph. Rabbi Rav Nachman Avakazil Be'arba. Rabbi Nachman was going on a boat. And he saw the yard which was there. Now he didn't know, right? They didn't cut it down because it was the Moshels. So he went and he said, Deman, who does this belong to? Amrule, they told him that Ravuna. Amar, he said, Viyada Sarim Eskenim Aita B'Ma'ala Zeh Rishona. Right? What does that mean? It's talking about the people that they got married out. So which means that people that, so when Ezra Sofer came, the first people that went up, there were people that got married out. They got married to Goyot. So what happened is he went and he said, this is a ma'al, it's milah. Why? Because it's a mixed marriages. So anything to do with mixed marriages is a problem. So Amalu, so he went and he said, Kutsu, cut it down. So Ata Rabbi Ravuna, so Ravuna comes and he says, I don't understand who's cutting down the trees. Amar, he comes and he says, Man katsye tekutsanfe. Right? He says, whoever cuts it down should cut down his own children. Yeah, so he says, Amri, they said, Kula Shani Rabbi Ravuna. So as long as Rabbi Ravuna was alive, so because of that klala, so that's why the children of Nachman, Rabbi Nachman, they weren't alive because of the curse. Meaning, so here in the footnote, he actually brings it down. He says that even though Rabbi Nachman, he cut it down because he didn't know who it belongs to, obviously, and that it was because since it was on two sides, nevertheless, the klala, right, was that he should have checked it before actually coming and cutting it down. But Tosfot comes and he says that even if he knew that it was shayach to him, and still he went and he said to cut it down, nevertheless, it's still the concept, right, that of a person that he shouldn't be mizalzel in this halacha. So he went and he cursed him because he said he wasn't milah. He says because he did according to the deen. So okay, there's a whole question about that. If you do according to the deen, can you actually do this or not? So that's where it gets down to in the where he's bringing down here. Was he doing according to the halacha? Not according to the halacha. And therefore, each one was, they were fighting about it, basically. Okay, what are they supposed to do? Fine. Now we're going to speak about a new topic. Amar Ravuna, says Ravuna. Hakol ligle gapa. Yeah, everybody is obligated to come and to build the walls of the city in order that there shouldn't come a foreign enemy into the city. Vafilu miyatmis, even from yitomim, from orphans. Aval Rabbanan lo, but from the rabbis no. My tama, what's the reasoning? Rabbanan lo tzricha netirata. The rabbis do not need shmirah. The rabbis don't need protection, right? But the karya defatia, he says, but to come and to start digging wells for drinking water, afilum Rabbanan, even for the rabbis. Okay, there's a whole thing here about the rabbis don't need protection because since they are learning Torah, so the Torah protects them. Right? Obviously, we're talking about Torah 100%, right? And he comes and he says, but drinking water, yes, because everybody needs to drink water. Okay? Fine. Velo Amran. And what are we dealing with now? Ela della nafka b'uchluza. What does that mean? He says the Balabatim are not going out themselves to actually dig. But if they go out to dig themselves the pits, the rabbis don't have to help out. Because the rabbis do not have to help out because since they don't go out to dig the pits, because it's a disgrace for them, so therefore they don't even have to help out. Meaning, if it's just paying, everybody pays, and then they get the job done, so the rabbis have to pay as well. The rabbis need to drink. Everybody needs to drink. So yes. But if it's going to be that they're going out to dig, then no. Yeah, but the rabbis don't need that. Amar of Yehuda, says of Yehuda, Lekaria dinahara. When we're talking about digging, right, the river, and you're going to come and you're going to take away all the stones and all these things which are stopping the water going by. The bottom ones, right, have to help the top ones. Meaning the ones which are living on the bottom of the river have to also help out the ones at the top of the river in order that the water should get to them. But the top ones do not have to help the bottom ones. And the opposite is to do with rainwater. Right? What does that mean? That if right now it got plugged up, right, the mega shamim and everything, so then the top ones have to help out, right, to clean it. Why? Because if the top one, he says over here, is going to help out the bottom one, so therefore, meaning that there it's the opposite, right? But if it's going to be the top one that gets broken, so then the bottom ones do not have to help to clean it out, because anyway, it's not mazik to the bottom ones. And opposite, it's better that way, right? When it's not going to come down to them. Tanya Miyach, we also learned this in a Braita. Right? What does the Braita say? The Braita says, Chamesh Ganot, you have 5 gardens, which is one under another. And they're all taking water from one mayan. Yeah, they need kalkela mayan. So the mayan was mitkalkel. Kulam, meaning that it became bad, right? That means the mayan, the spring stopped. Now remember, there's 5 different fields, which is one underneath each other, and they're all getting from the same spring coming down. Stop. What? So nitkalkel mayan, kulam metaknot. All of them have to fix imalyona with the top one. All of them. Yeah? He says, but if you're not going to fix the mayan, so then it's not going to go to the lower ones. So it comes out that the tachtona is fixing with everybody, and he has to fix with himself, right? Which means he has to fix all of them, and then he has to fix the bottom part only by himself. Meaning like this. Here you have the mayan up here, and it's going down, right? So the springs are going down, and you have fields, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So obviously the bottom one has to fix with each one, because if he wants it to get to him, he needs to fix also as well, the one above, and the one above, the one above. But the one all the way in the bottom, it's only him by himself that has to fix that part. Why? Because if I'm in the top house, why do I have to fix the bottom? I don't need the bottom. It's only the bottom by himself that he needs all the way in the bottom. So he has to fix beside himself, beside him, plus all the above. The next one has to fix beside him, plus all the above. The next one has to fix beside him, plus all the above. Meaning each one has to fix above in order that it should get to them. But they don't have to fix below. Same halacha would apply to chamesh chatzerot. What does that mean?
One brother that doesn't want
He can't do that.
Too much water.
The same halacha would apply to 5 fields. Shayumi kalchot mayim, that they were having water from Megeshamim, the bivechad, right, to one place where they're going downwards in order to come into. There was too much rainwater, so it was like used as a sewage to go down. So this beef, which is like the sewage, became also destroyed. It stopped, got plugged up. Everyone has to fix with the bottom one. So that means the top one is fixing with everybody, but it's the only one that has to fix with itself. So again, the same concept, meaning here, the other way around. Before, the spring was coming on the top, so the bottom one needs the spring from the top. So the bottom one has to fix with everybody, so that way it could get to him, right? And then the bottom one is the only one that's fixing beside him, in order that he could flick. The top one does not need it. Now, what about the other way around? Sewage. Yes, to evacuate the water. Sewer. You know what a sewer is? So now the top one, he's the only one that's fixing beside him, but he has to fix with everybody on the bottom, right? So that means why? Because every single person has to fix with the bottom one, because the bottom one is the main one in order to fix the sewage. Okay, huh?
Very apropos.
Exactly, 100. Yes, 100%. Yeah, it was also flooded. So Amar Shmuel comes and he says, "Hayman de'achzik berakta dinara." A person that has a chazaka on the karka by Sfatanar, chatzifa have. He's a chatzuf. Why? He's mikalkel the entire place for everybody. Salukil misalkin ale. They're not going to take away the karka, right? Because at pidina malchut it helps the chazaka there. Ve'aina de kakate parsai. But now that the Persians come and they write kenelach ad melet savre susi amaya, you have to purchase until into the water. Salukin, then we could get rid of him. Why? Because it doesn't help such a chazakah. And once it doesn't help such a chazakah, you just get rid of him. So Amr of Yehuda Marav says of Yehuda, the name of Rav, Hayman de achzik bene ache uvene shutfe. Somebody that's going to be machzik in the karka between two different properties of two brothers or shutafim. Chatzif ave is a chatzuf, right? Why is he has a chutzpah? He says because obviously they had it for themselves. So saluka misalakin, but they cannot get rid of him again. Because if al pi din malchut, he's got the rights to do it, so you can't do anything about it. Rav Nachman says no, you could get rid of him. But if it's going to be because of din of Mar Metzra, right, then you cannot get rid of him, right? Because they don't care about the din of Bar Metzra. Because basically he did something wrong. So because he did something wrong, so therefore obviously we're going to do something wrong with him and get rid of him. Okay, Narda says, even because of Bar Metzra, you take him off. So we come out that there's a chiyuv la'asot ha'yashar v'atov, and therefore, right, since the Ben HaMetzar is benefiting if he's going to get this, and the person is not benefiting, meaning he's not losing out, so therefore you have to do a yashar v'atov. Ata im lichbei, if he comes to ask, Elmaleh, he says, Ezev izbun, right? Can I come and buy it? Elmaleh, he says, Zil zavin, does he have to make a kinyan or not? So Ravina says, Lo tzarech lemikne mine, you don't have to make a kinyan. Adayamar tzarech lemikne mine, you do not have to make a kinyan. V'hilchata what's halacha? Tzarech lemikne mine, you have to make a kinyan. And if you didn't, you could always retract. Meaning, this is the right of first refusal, I think it's called in English, right? Which means that if I have a property and I want to buy the one right next door, I have the first rights. Okay, now if I don't want to buy it, so then okay, so anybody else could come and they could buy it. So here it says, but you have to make a kinyan in order to make sure, right, that I don't retract. Because if not, I could tell you, yeah, go buy it. And then all of a sudden, no, I want it myself. So there has to be a kinyan done. Now that you just said you have to make.
For buying that.
Yes. Yeah, you have, because he has the right of first refusal. No, the one that's already living in the house next door. He has to make the kinyan.
For buying
The neighbor, and he has to make a kinyan with him that I don't want it. So he says, Hashta damar tatzarech lemikne mine v'lo kanu mine. Yaakov v'zu b'shuteh. So therefore, if it's going to go up in price, or go to become cheaper, it's going to be the same halacha over here. It's ki'ilu that it went into the thing, and he doesn't have to pay for him, just like he paid the lokeach balasadeh. And therefore, if it became more expensive in between, so therefore the Ben HaMetzar is actually gaining from it. And if it became cheaper, so the Ben HaMetzar is the one that lost out the money because he wants to obviously buy it. So Zavan b'mea v'shavi matan. What happens if right now he bought it for 100 and now it's worth 200? Chazina, we're going to see if he was going to make it cheaper for everybody. Yeah, so he gives him 100. He just takes it. If not, he has to give him the 200. Meaning it could be that maybe he gave it to him at a cheaper price because he was friends with the other guy. So therefore, when I wanted to buy it, I'm the neighbor. He wanted to sell to me for 200, but really, Be'emet, he sold to the other guy for 100. So it all depends on if he was going to sell to everybody for 100, so I only have to pay 100. But if it was only going to be for this guy, so then I would have to actually pay the original amount, the real amount, which is the 200. The other way around, Zavan mematan v'shavya. What happens if he sold it for 200 and it's only worth 100? So Savar Mineh, they wanted to think, Matzi Amaleh, you could say, meaning I sent you to fix, not to make it worse. Amaleh mor kashisha bered Rav Chasta Lavashi, Achi Amr Narda Mishun Rav Nachman. This is what Rav Narda said in Rav Nachman. En onaa lekakao. There's no such thing as onaa and kakao, meaning I could charge you more for land and you could never reject because onaa does not exist in land. Onaa, which is charge overcharging, right? The 1/6, that only applies to movable objects, not to karka, not to land. So land, I could charge you more. There's nothing what you could do, right? Why? There's the here he says in the footnote, he says, right? If I remember, actually, no, let me see if the Gemara is going to explain. No, I think that if I remember correctly, Ona'ah only applies because that's where the Pasuk was talking about. The Pasuk was only talking about movable objects. So since the Pasuk was only talking about that, so therefore it comes out that by land, right, there's no such thing because land is never something which will get rid of. So the value is always higher than what it is. It doesn't exist that it's not, something land is always land. And you do see that, right? Tangible, something which is a movable object will always go down in price. A land is always fixed. It's always there. Again? A person comes and he sells a certain property, right, a certain amount, in the middle of another field. Now, we're going to suspect that maybe they did like a whole, Kuhn says he said, they made like a whole trick over here, right? Because basically, he's only selling it in the middle of the field, and now there's no bar metzra. I mean, like this: if I've got a field, right, and I'm going to sell you a piece in the middle, so now there's no such thing as the neighbors, because it was in the middle. Who's your neighbor? I'm your neighbor, because I sold it to you in the middle of my field. So all surrounding that field is me. So therefore, I don't have to give anybody else the first right of refusal, because I've got the outer part of the field, and I sold you a little piece in the middle. So there's no bar mitzvah there. There's no middle. There's no neighbors there. So chazinan. So one second. So we're gonna see we're gonna see first of all if it's a very good property or a bad property. And then it's going to be a good, right? Why? Because he says he only sold it in order to do this. So he says ve'ilo, but if not, which means that it's not different from the rest of the field. Irume kamarim, right? Kuf chetamubet, 108b. So then he's doing harama, and harama is prohibited. Meaning like this: maybe I sold you a different part of the field in the middle, either because it was very good or very bad. Meaning the rest of my entire field was, let's say, Sug Aleph or A, right? In the middle of the field, it was either something incredible or something terrible. So I sold it to you.
Are we access?
Which ones? No, he'll get an access. He'll get an access.
So it's the access.
Of course, he has to give him access. He doesn't have to fly him there. Yeah. So what happens is that if right now we come and we see that it was a different, meaning whether it was very, very good or very bad, it's a good sale. Why? He sold him that. It was different. But if we're going to see it's the exact same, why does he sell him exactly in the middle? Why doesn't he sell him on the right side or on the left side or on the north, south? Well, what's he? Dafka specifically in the middle. There, one second. So there, what's happening is that he's doing a harama. Harama means he's doing a trick. That means he's trying to bypass the neighbors. And trying to bypass the neighbors, it doesn't help, and therefore it does not work. Okay? That's what we're saying until you. Okay? Says the Gemara, matana lepa mishum dvina devaretza. Another concept is matana, a present. A present, there's no problem with bar metzra. Amar Ramimar says he katav lo achrayut. But no, he says no. But if he gave him a responsibility, meaning achrayut, there is a problem of bar metzra. Machar kol nechasav leechad. He sold all his properties to one person. Leba mishum din of bar metzra. There's no din of bar metzra. To the original ones, there's not going to be a din of bar metzra. Okay, why? Because basically he says, right? Since he was, meaning if you're going to sell it back to the original owner, there's no din of bar metzra because he was the original owner already from the beginning. If right now he bought it from Elvet Kochavim, so you can't say I went and I got rid of the lion from me. If he sold it to Elvet Kochavim, we're going to come and put him into nidui, until he's going to accept any onasim until that happens, which means like this. If I come and I sell it if I come and I buy it from a goy, from you, now the goy has no obligation of doing vasita yeshavatov. Let's say the goy, there's no such thing as right of first refusal for a goy. So therefore he comes and he sold it to anybody. So you're a Jew, you come and you buy it, and now the neighbor is upset at you because he was Jewish and he wanted the field. So you could tell him, listen, but I got rid of the Ari. I got rid of the lion. So therefore I did you a favor. You can't say anything to me. He says, what about the other way around? I went and I sold it to a goy. Now we're going to come and we're going to put you in cherem until you accept upon yourself any responsibilities that is caused because of your sale. Meaning, if now this guy's going to come and he's going to make trouble for you, for your neighbor, you have to pay for it. Why do you have to pay for it? Because listen, what are you selling it to? Right of first refusal. You should have given it to, you didn't do it. You're going to have to pay for it. Mashkanta. If a person comes and he has like a mashkon, which means like a collateral, there's no problem of being a Bava Metzia. The Amar Ravashi says, the elders of Mata Mechasya told me, my mashkanta, what is mashkanta? The shkune gabe. There is a shkena by him. The minaf kamina, the dina de Bava Metzia, to do with the dina Bava Metzia, which means the lender himself comes before anybody, even a buyer, right? Because there's nobody closer than the lender. So if a person is going to sell a field which is far away in order to buy a field which is closer, or a bad field in order to get a better field, there's no problem with dina. When we're talking about for taxes and parnasa and kura and everything, there's no problem with dina Metzia. To do with any type of whether taxes or mizonot or kura, they sell it right without even mentioning it. I mean, they don't publicize it or anything. They're going to sell the properties of yitomim, of orphans, right? Because usually they have to wait 30 days. It's not. Here they do it right away. Because if they need parnasa or they need a burial plot for the guy or whatever the case is, they don't wait. They do it right away. To do with it, you're going to sell a field to a woman or to yitomim or to partners. So therefore, there's no din of bar metzra, right? And zchut kedima to bar metzra. Okay? Shechenei ha'ir u'shechenei sadeh u'shechenei ha'ir kodmin shachen v'talmid chacham kodem karov v'talmid chacham talmid chacham kodem. Okay? Fine. So here you have neighbors of the city and neighbors of the vicinity, like the neighborhood, the ones of the ir kodmin l'shechenei sadeh. And he says the shachen and tamid chacham. The tamid chacham is the first one that gets the first rights. Karov tamid chacham kodem means that tamid chacham comes even before a family member in order to come and to buy. Okay? So now we're going to ask the question, because we just went and we said shchenei is ayir v'shchenei sadeh. We spoke about shachen and tamid chacham and karov. What about shachen and karov? So so we're going to ask the following question: shachen v'karov, what's halacha? So Tashima, we're going to try to bring the following proof. Tov shachen karov me'ach rachok. It's better a neighbor which is close by than a brother which is far away. He says here, the reason is the Rama brings this machloket. He's talking about basically in a case where the shachen is dafka, obviously your friend, right? Because if it's not, so then it doesn't help actually, right? So we're talking about here, right? It's going to be closer. And therefore he comes and he says, but in all the dinim, obviously, if one of them came and he did it and he purchased it, he's going to be zocher. The other one cannot buy it. He cannot take him off, right? Because they're not mamash b'nei metzar. So for you can't. Meaning, since they're not real neighbors, right? Even though they're in the vicinity, but they cannot enforce it. Meaning, it's nice, but they cannot enforce it. So, for example, you don't live next door to me, but still, I should give you the rights because you're in the vicinity. But once I already sold it to somebody else, you can't take it away from that person because you're not a real neighbor. You're not a real dina de bar metzra. Okay? The zuzim which a person gives, right, which are going to be good, and the zuzim which a person is going to bring is not good. There's no meaning like this. The guy that's the neighbor, he wants to pay you, but he's going to pay you in dollar bills. Yeah, and the other guy is coming with $100 bills, right? So who wins? Hani tzayre vehani share leba mishum dina de metzra. Right? The one which are the money of metzar, which are in a chavila, right? Or the one which is going to be the one that's buying it, there's no dina bar metzra. Amar izil ve'etrach vayte zuze. Person comes and he says, listen, I'm going to go and I'm going to bring the money. Lo natrilin, we're not going to wait for him. Amar izil vayte zuze. He says, I'm bringing the money. So then we're going to see if he has the money. So then we wait for him. If not, no. Meaning we're not going to wait for the guy to start looking for money. But if the guy has the money and he says, I'm bringing the money, so we wait for him. If we evaluate that Bemet he could bring the money. Okay. Another case also. Arach dechad ubata dechad. What happens if the land belongs to one person, but the house belongs to somebody else? So mare ara me'akev amare bate. The balakarka could be me'akev on the bala house to sell it. Right? Why? Because it's good that the house should belong to him. If he already owns the land, so he should have the house. But the marebate cannot be me'akev on the mare de'ara. Right? Why? Because anyway, somebody else owned the land. So therefore, it's going to now become somebody else. It doesn't impede because I already own the house. Ara dechav dikle dechav. If the land belongs to one and a dekel belongs to somebody else, the mare de'ara kmatzi me'akev dikla, right? Because he doesn't want other people coming into his field to get from his trees. But a dikla cannot stop the amare de'ara. Ara lebate ve'ara lezara. What happens if you have a field for a house and a field for the planting? Yeshuv adif, right? The living is better, and therefore there's no deen of bar metzra. So therefore there's no zechut kidima for that person. Afsik meshunyata, if there's going to be a stone in the middle, which is making a pasek, or richvat dikla, or dekalim, like there's a whole thing of palm trees which are making a separation. We're going to see if a person could come and put, right, in order to put inside that field, so then there's going to be din of bar metzra. But if he cannot go in, even whatsoever, because of the trees, so there's no din of bar metzra. Okay, v'hana arba'a bar metzrane, the kadin chabina v'zavin zvin zvin. Now, there are 4 bnei metzar, right? So any one that came and he bought, it's a good sale. And the other neighbors cannot come and stop him. One more time. I'm in the middle. I've got 4 neighbors. Which one gets the zchut kidima? Which one gets the right of first refusal? So he says any of the 4 that come and buy, they get it, right? If they all come at the same time, he says they're going to obligate it, right, into 4, meaning that, I'm going to give the one on the bottom, I'm going to give in the south, one on the north, I'm going to give in the north. Meaning I come and I like divide it, and then that's how I'm going to sell it to each one if they all came at the same time. But if one of them came and he took it, that one wins more than anybody else. Okay.